Welcome to a Soccer Down Here 1v1, and it's time to catch up with our friends at the Toombs County Soccer Association. Fletcher Corbin, the head coach of the U19 girls and boys, hanging out with us for a bit of an education for those that may not know what's going on in the Vidalia area in Toombs County in the east central Georgia. Coach, thanks for hanging out with us for a 1v1 and letting folks know what's going on out there in Vidalia and Toombs County.
Thank you for having me. We've been looking forward to it.
So let's go back to the beginning, and really when it comes to the Toombs County Soccer Association, you've been there for about 2 decades. How has the sport grown since you have been there in Toombs County in the Vidalia area?
Okay. Well, when I first moved to the area in 2003, the recreation department had a league, and it was 2 practices. You play 6 matches, and then you're done. So, I started this for selfish reasons. I had a 9-year-old son who tried to expose to every sport. And then he came to me and said, I like all these other sports, but I like soccer the best. I said, well, we'll get good at it. So I started exploring the club soccer, and a good friend of mine, John Benner, who lives in Jessup, Georgia, said, no, you don't want to just do that. You want to play with Georgia soccer. And I said, okay. And so he gave us the information. And so we started out with a 12U co-ed team. And back then we were playing 11 aside. So we started out there, and I didn't really realize how big club soccer was. Back in the 80s when I played, the 1980s for the millennials listening, we had a travel team where we traveled up and down the coast to Savannah. We played Hilton Head, Brunswick, down into Jacksonville, went over to Hinesville some, and that was about it. And it wasn't anything like the club system that we have today.
What's it been like to see it grow to where it is now? Has it surprised you how incremental it has been to where it is now with everything that you're accomplished? Has it surprised you how things have grown?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely has surprised me. We're in the middle of football, baseball country in the southeast part of Georgia. So, but there's kids that just fell in love with the game like I did way back when I began playing. I grew up playing all the typical South Georgia sports: football, baseball, basketball. Then I finally played soccer when I was 13, and then I didn't look back. And, there's just a drive. There's kids that are driven to play the sport. And, the sport itself makes you fall in love with it.
And recently, outside of the high school purview, and I'll get back to that in just a second,
Sure.
You've got what's going on now in Statesboro with South Georgia Tormenta and USL League One. You've got the Savannah Clovers, who are looking to work their way into NISA. You've got Sowegans down in Albany, who's looking to go in, I think, USL League Two and figure out where they want to go. And it's been this really cool growth, and it's been here, and it's been here, and it's been here. And all of these areas that you would think of as the non-traditional soccer market, and I'll put those in air quotes,
Right,
are now developing into places that are havens for folks who haven't had the opportunity to play in these opportunities in the past, in these cities in the past. And you've been able to see that in Vidalia and that part of the state too, true?
Yes. We recently had an opportunity to start a UPSL side out of Vidalia, and we had our first season this past season. And because I always would have kids who would age out of our youth programs who would say, what else do you have for me? I'm not going to go on to college. I've got to go to work. I'm going to tech school to learn a trade, but I want to keep playing. And these were very good players that could have gone and played at the college level, but they didn't necessarily fall into that academia setting where they wanted to go to work. And academic track isn't for everybody, and there's all kinds of learning. I've met some people with master's degrees. I don't want working on my car or anything like that, and vice versa, So And we saw the growth of the UPSL, and they had a Georgia league, and I started investigating it. And I investigated it for about 3 years. And I was like, we do this kind of travel for youth, and I'm sure these guys would want to do. So we held a tryout. 7 guys showed up, and they said, Coach, don't cut it off. We've got 7 more guys coming, and we ended up with about 30 players rostered for the UPSL side for the spring summer season.
What was it like to, and I know that you probably canvassed a lot of different ideas, but what was the response like from the UPSL? Because this is a league that has grown exponentially across the country, and we've had the hires up from the UPSL on the network in the past. But when you look at the UPSL, I mean, what concerns did you have going in, or was this something that with all of that due diligence you were like, okay, this is where we should be?
Our biggest concern was being able to generate the revenue, because all the guys worked, and we had to come up with a business model. But the UPSL, Andre Bomar, who's the Georgia commissioner, he put us in touch with the higher ups. I can't even remember their names though, but Andre's been like, and he's like, and they kind of almost said, take the plunge. And I was looking at starting up the fall, winter. They're like, no, you need to do it now. They kind of put the pressure on and made us make a great decision for soccer in our community, in our area, and for our youth club as well. Not only did we have this adult team, this professional development league generating, but in the spring, because we had the UPSL side, we grew about 30 to 40% in our youth numbers, because we have a large Hispanic community in our area, and they understand the club system, that you play for the club through the youth program, and then you move on to the first team. So they have a better understanding of that. So, I mean, it was something that I'm going to have to thank Andre for really pushing me to go ahead and do it. And then we were able to solicit a couple of sponsors. One was, we had some private individuals, and we also had one business. The acronym is SWAT, Solid Waste Applied Technologies, and they sell and work on trash trucks. And the guy who runs at JC Gillenwater, he's the owner, and plus he's one of our coaches. And he's like, no, you need to do that. And what do you need? And we told him, and he didn't blink an eye, and he jumped in and helped us out. And we also have a great support from our field owners. We have one at Tabernacle Baptist Church that grants us access and things that we need to really put it on. And then we have a car dealer some of our training grounds are right next to their dealership. And they're like, yeah, just make sure people come through and look at our lot. And that's Paul Thigpen Chevrolet in Vidalia. So couldn't let them get through this without recognizing those two.
Fletcher Corbin from the Toombs County Soccer Association hanging out with us for a Soccer Down Here 1v1, talking about the growth of the sport and an interesting step that they took down there in Vidalia and Toombs County, heading into the UPSL and being there for their first season. So when you think about growth, we talked about where the UPSL is in growth. Mm-hmm. What about for the Toombs County Soccer Association? What are your plans for growth now that you've dipped your toe into the UPSL pool and you like the water and you like the swimming pool that you're in right now? What are the plans for growth now that you've had this next level of identity added to the Toombs County Soccer Association?
Well, our big thing is we start out as a youth club, so we want to keep pushing the limits, and we're branching out to our surrounding communities who don't necessarily have club. We're branching out to Hazelhurst, to Baxley, to Reedsville, all communities about the same size as ours. And we're having tryouts for our fall winter tomorrow and we're trying to get a women's side started as well. Now, I've heard that's going to be quite challenging, but if I listen to all the critics, we wouldn't have a youth club, we wouldn't have a men's side. So if we fail at it, or if I fail at it, then it won't be the first time that I failed at something, but we're going to keep moving forward and persevering, because there's a need for positive things for our new graduates from high school or 20 somethings. And even we're attracting kids. We've got a guy who comes from Hardyville, South Carolina, to play with our UPSL team. So there's people out there looking and searching, and if we weren't providing this positive thing for folks to get involved in and get behind, like we've had our crowds average for our home games about 50 people, that's pretty good for us. And I think our crowds would grow more if we could manage to throw a few wins together in the next season.
You mentioned the women's side, and I think that was probably one of the first entry points that we had into seeing the growth of the game, was when the Vidalia High girls side made it to a state championship and played a couple seasons back at five-star over at Mercer. When you look at the women's side and the girls side, what's it been like to see that growth over the last handful of years, in addition to what you're seeing on the boys and men's side?
The women's side, on the girls' side, that group of girls in 2017, they won the President's Cup and went to the regionals. But what people didn't see is when they were all 8, 9, 10 years old, they played in a 12U boys league and finished about 500. There was a couple other girls teams, and when they would play them, they would just crush them. And so most of that team got offers to play at college. I mean, one girl in particular is playing Division I. But, so I'm kind of losing my train of thoughts.
Well, no, but just when it comes to the girls' side, I mean, you mentioned a couple of counties, and for those that may not know, from a high school football perspective, that's Region 1 and 3 AA right now, the way things are. Yeah. You're looking at Tattnall County, Jeff Davis County, Appling County, what you've got there in Toombs, and it's natural expansion, I think, from what you're seeing. But having that event, or having that moment on the women's side a couple of years ago, I think that it's one of those things that you can sit there and wave your hand in the air and sit there and go, yes, the sport is growing here, and it's not just on the men's or boys' side.
Right. Oh, yeah. And it's a sport for all. I mean, I'm a big proponent of women's sport, especially the girls' side. I had a daughter that came along with my son for the ride, and she was a very dynamic player. But it just all started from there, from those two deciding that they wanted to play, and we just kept offering opportunities, and kids kept coming out. Parents decided, hey, this is a great sport for my kid. And the big thing that just I'm in awe of over the years is the trust that these families put in us and the other coaches in our club to help to mold these young people. And the trust that these guys, I mean, I had a couple of guys who played UPSL who drove to play with the Clovers, and the Clovers hit a transition period at the right time for us, because that means these guys were looking for a place to play, because they took a season off because they were entering NISA. And so they helped drive it and create what we've got. And, we're steadily building numbers. Like this fall, as far as our women's side and our youth program, I think we're up to about 25 girls now. COVID hit us pretty hard, where in the past 2 years, we were averaging about 13 girls in our 19U division. And that was just, the struggles were real for that.
How would you describe the level of the game in the region on the boys/men's and girls/women's sides? How would you characterize the level of the game?
Well, comparing it to what we did in the 80s, we were kickball specialists. We had fast guys up top we'd make sure we played it long and they would run on the back end of it. Now, I mean, the kids are so talented. The first touch is incredible. What we had to get used to in entering the UPSL was the speed of the game. It wasn't that we were any less technically sound or our tactics weren't there. It was just that we had to develop the pace. We had to limit our touches. We had to go one touch, two touch, and really the runs without the ball, you had to be in the right spot, and that would help with just your overall playing the game.
When you look at, so I guess this will be my crystal ball question. When you look at, say, things, let's just go 5 years down the line. When you look at things 5 years down the line, how would you like to see things continue to grow and evolve there at the TCSA, in Vidalia, in Southeast Georgia, knowing what's going on around you that we've talked about in Savannah and Statesboro and other points, but how would you like to see things continue to grow and evolve down there in Toombs County with the TCSA and in Vidalia?
In the next 5 years, I've actually thought about this in great length. I've actually written down a few goals too. What I'd like to see is a soccer-specific stadium here. I don't think it would be unheard of for us to have a NISA or a USL team playing out of Vidalia, Georgia. I mean, the players are here. There's a lot of talent in this area, and we're getting recognition outside of our area, and they may not be the talent that still needs to be developed that can't get in the programs with the Clovers or Tormenta or someone like that, but they still need a place to develop so that they can grow. I mean, we're a professional development league, and we want our players to get recognized and signed. And if we can make a jump into a professional environment, we'd love to see that happen and maybe retain some of these players that bought into our system or came to us so that they could continue to develop.
Part of UPSL Division I with the folks like Lemanio, Georgia, Vino Tinto, Atlanta City FC, Middle Georgia United, Kalanji Pro Profiles U23s, LGSA, pre-college DA, it is the TCSA. Coach, for those that want to keep an eye on what's going on down there at the TCSA, might want to be a part, might be in and around the area, might want to see an opportunity there with what's going on there at Toombs County Soccer Association, how do they catch up with you and everybody there at the TCSA so they can stay up to date on everything going on?
Okay. Well, we have our social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, and that's spelled out Toombs County Soccer Association. On Facebook and on Twitter, our handles at TCSA 2004. The UPSL team has got TCSA United on Instagram and Facebook. And at our website, we've got tcsasoccer.com. And and you can just catch us at one of the field locations anytime throughout the week at Tabernacle Baptist Church or Paul Thigpen Chevrolet.
Fletcher Corbin, head coach of the U19 girls and boys for the Toombs County Soccer Association. Really interesting story about where TCSA decided to go for their next steps, and it was the UPSL. Coach, thanks for hanging out with us for a Soccer Down Here 1v1. We'll be keeping an eye on what's going on down there in Vidalia and Toombs County and Appling County and Jeff Davis County and Tatnall County as you continue to grow. Thanks for hanging out with us for a 1v1.
Thank you so much for your time and your help.